Greetings and welcome to Mount Olympus. I am Hercules Invictus, and today I am proud to bring you Bob Vosseller and Spaced Out. Greetings and welcome, Bob. How are you?
Doing great. Enjoying the holidays and having fun and looking forward to the new year. I can't believe 2021 is almost gone.
I know, considering all the trials and tribulations that just about everybody had to go through, this year zoomed by remarkably fast. Usually such times move slowly, but the year, I'm surprised that another week passes. You know, it seems every time I turn around, it's another week already.
I know, to think that next week is Christmas and then week after that, we'll be hitting the new year. So it's amazing. I think ever since the pandemic, time has just sort of moved faster or something like that. It feels that way.
I'm glad that things are, well, I'm speaking a little too soon because with the Omicron, now things are starting to slow down again and close down again. But for a while, it seemed that things were coming back.
I know. I'm actually a little depressed because I saw the news just, a little while ago during dinner, and it was like, it just brought back memories. Plus being in the news business, I cover things that are related to that and some of the frustrations that parents have and the schools have and the officials have and I think the general public, I think it's fair to say, are just tired of this. They're just, unfortunately, it's not tired of us, but we're tired of it, and and then to see, it goes up and down. We start to climb back, and then we see, another variant, and then we see some restrictions that have to happen or something else that leads that, and it just gets depressing. I heard that the Radio City Music Hall, they just had to cancel their season.
Yes, I heard that too.
The NFL has a few delays in their games. So I'm not a big football follower, but I'm sorry to see that as well, and I'm certainly sorry to see all the people that came out for musicals and things like that, and plays, and only to find out that those are now canceled. So it's a shame.
My wife and I, and sometimes our son, our youngest, used to go before the pandemic like once a month to a movie, and it was usually a superhero movie because that's something that we all liked and we could all, agree on watching together. And the first time we went back to the movie theater, and it was just my wife and myself, was for the Eternals.
Mm-hmm.
And now Spider-Man seems so awesome, and we got to see Shang-Chi on television, on the cable. So that was that was great too. So we were looking forward to Spider-Man, and then all the news started coming through about the Omicron.
Yeah. Looking back, a little bit to this, since this is the last Spaced Out of 2021, just
Wow.
looking at some of the movies and especially the superhero movies. I mean, I think the first Marvel movie of the year was Black Widow, that we were waiting for quite a while, because it was supposed to be out in, I believe it was originally supposed to be out in April or May of 2020.
Yes.
And when it did come out, and I don't have all these streaming services outside of Paramount Plus, and much like Nicole Kidman, I prefer seeing movies on the big screen. Every time that commercial comes out, either on TV or in the theater, I'm always mouthing where she says magic, because it is, but again, I respect everybody's view of their own personal safety and how they want to view movies, and sometimes it's just convenient to sit home and watch it on the smaller screen. But for me, motion pictures, is especially certain ones like the Eternals, were definitely made for the big screen and the whole popcorn experience.
Mm-hmm.
And the Eternals, well, actually, I'll go back to Black Widow. Black Widow was great. I mean, I really enjoyed Black Widow. It had a nice mix of humor, action, spies, drama. It introduced new characters. It set things up. and Scarlett Johansson was just fantastic.
Yes.
And it was a great next chapter into the Marvel legacy. And of course, it was set in between, the last Avengers movie, for obvious reasons, and introduced some new characters, and including her sister. And it just had a great cast. Marvel's been really good with their casting, and I thought it was great. And it had the usual tail end trailer. I mean, end credit scenes that hinted at something else, which apparently right now it was a lead into Hawkeye, which is on the Disney Plus streaming service, which I don't have, but I've heard is wonderful show.
It is. We have the Disney Plus. We don't have the Paramount, but we have the Disney Plus, and
Then the reverse.
Hawkeye, all of them have been wonderful. I was very surprised. I thought there would be some that I liked more than others. And although that is true to some extent, they were all excellent, and all of them really expanded the characters and the lore and tied the movies together in a whole new way.
Well, I think, and this is something in January, I'll touch on with my guest, Laura, who couldn't be here tonight. But Marvel has a knack for taking a piece of comic history with a major storyline, like Civil War, like the Power Gauntlet, and things like that, and just making taking elements of those big storylines that cross through several different comic books, and using that material but adapting it to how they can see it fit into a major motion picture, or in the case of Avengers, a trilogy of movies. And it just did a fantastic. They've been doing a fantastic job.
Yeah.
Going to the Eternals, that was a completely new experience for me, and I was trying to get my wife to go with me, because I explained to her the Eternals really wasn't a superhero movie. I don't see it as one. I see it more of a sci-fi mythology type movie that stands on its own. I wasn't as familiar with the comic book because I didn't collect the Eternals, but I was familiar with Cersei from being a member of the Avengers.
Yes.
And of course, this Cersei is much different than than the Avenger, than she was in the Avengers in the comic books, but which is fine. I mean, I think that this movie, which was also well cast, Selma Hayek, Angelina Jolie, and so many of the other performers were just incredible. And it told a very interesting story. And for me, I didn't have to base it on the comic book, because again, I wasn't as familiar. I knew who the major characters were, but I didn't really know the whole storyline. I mean, I knew it was another Jack Kirby effort of, alien space gods coming to Earth and that sort of thing, and having, almost a civil war amongst themselves, similar to his fourth
world.
Fourth world for his DC saga. So I mean, but they really presented a good story. The costuming, the characterization. I know there was changes within certain things, but it didn't seem to matter, and it really told a whole story. And you didn't need to know any of the other Marvel movies, really.
Right.
So
And they
I
often the
enjoyed it.
Avengers and the things you might be familiar with as a casual viewer, like the Avengers. They made some casual references, to the Avengers.
Yeah. At the same time, you're still in the same universe as the other Marvel movies, but you don't have to know all the backstory if you were new to the whole saga. And it had a surprise too, because I certainly didn't expect what happened at the end to happen. I don't know how much we want to talk about that, but because it involved a major character who I always thought was the major hero. So yeah, so
Yeah, that was a twist. That
definitely
was.
a twist.
I didn't really collect the Avengers, but I was aware of it from when it launched because I've always been into the mythology and science fiction, mythology and UFOs, mythology and ancient civilizations. Those type of topics have been a lifelong preoccupation of mine, as you know. And so
Hmm.
I'm looking forward to the Eternals movie because the Eternals comic dealt with that. Uh,
Yeah,
and Kirby didn't want it to be part of the Marvel universe, just like he didn't want his fourth world to be part of the DC universe. He wanted it to be kind of like separate. So in the Eternals, as he originally conceived them, these were the Greek gods. And,
hmm,
and the mythology were the Greeks' understanding of these beings, and the stories that they told about them because they happened to live on top of Mount Olympus, like a pocket dimension type of thing. And so they were the same as the Greek gods, and it seems like the movie hinted at that too, like with Athena and Athena, the way they handled that scrap of information. And again, you saw Kirby in the comic run, kind of like give in to Marvel by doing things like having Cersei cast an illusion, so someone at the head of the thing at some press
yeah.
conference. Then they had a Hulk robot that.
Yes, I do remember that. I remember that cover. I mean, I did
Yes.
have a great appreciation for Jack Kirby and for some of his, a lot of his work actually, and his layouts and stuff. It's just that I think I knew that this was a separate thing. And I also had a budget a little bit because I was still collecting DC at the same time I was
Mhm.
collecting Marvel. And even though comics were like 25 cents, 35 cents, 50 cents around that time, I still had a budget that I had to keep. And Eternals was just, not going to be part of my,
You know
uh,
how I got to run that as a kid?
mm.
I got a job in a soda shop, where people go and get.
Oh,
I
oh,
sold newspapers and comic books, so I used to get whatever I wanted to buy from the shop at cost. So
oh,
I used to get the comic books for like a dime or something. Let's say I don't remember exactly how much it was, but it was a lot cheaper than the cover price. So I used to pre-order whatever I wanted and pay for it, and then when it came in, it would already be there for me.
oh
So
man.
that was like the best thing ever when I was that age.
Well, I remember, of course, I didn't always live here full time where I live now, but it was always a summer place for my, back when it was a bungalow and it was my aunt's place. And as a kid, I would be sent down just 2 blocks to what was then Esposito's Market and what is now, for a long time, has been a Chinese restaurant. And when it was Esposito's Market, I would go down there, order order the sub. But while I was there waiting for the sub to be made, which seemed to take forever, which was fine for me, I would go pick my comics that I was going to buy, and then, like the little rascal I was, like would peruse through comics that I wanted to read. you know.
Uh-huh.
And Mrs. Esposito was well aware of what I was doing, as long as I didn't mess up any comics. And then 9 times out of 10, I'd actually buy some of the ones that I did, that I read before because I liked them and wanted to have them in my collection. So, but yeah, it was always a fun thing. And but yeah, Jack Kirby was amazing. It was amazing what he did it for both comic companies, and
Mhm.
I think for DC, he, like as you said, he really didn't want the fourth world to be part of that. And I believe the story was that the Jimmy Olsen comic book in the 70s, when Jimmy Olsen still had a comic book, as did Lois Lane, as
Mhm.
did Supergirl, as did Superboy, Jimmy Olsen was not selling, and he was doing the artwork for Jimmy Olsen. And it was, they were looking for anything to get the sales up. And I think they brought in, Dark Side, and they brought in, a Superman storyline that would bring in the big guns from his, so I think that's how that all happened, because I do remember, like, a very weird looking Jimmy Olsen, drawn by
Jack
Jack
Kirby.
Kirby. Um, but first, I think that's where I first saw Darkseid. I was like, wow, that's quite a character, and some of the other characters, Desaad, and so
Granny Goodness and
Grand, yeah, yeah, yeah. I did pick up a Mr. Miracle. I wish I still had that. It was like the second issue of Mr. Miracle, and he was in a blue outfit. He wasn't even in his regular outfit. And that other outfit came later, and I'm like, oh, they changed his costume. And I realized that he really didn't have, that really wasn't his costume when he escaped from
Apocalypse.
Apocalypse. Yeah, yeah.
I also have a very early issue of Mr. Miracle. I still happen to have it, but that too is just one issue
Yeah.
that I picked up, and it wasn't quite my cup of tea, that particular issue, so I didn't pick it up again. And I only really started exploring the New Gods, although I was aware of them, when I read what he'd done on the Eternals. And also the Inhumans to some extent, because the Inhumans were also based on Greek mythology, and they were also like experiments from outer space, and it was kind of like the same stories, the Eternals, except it wasn't the Celestials, it was the Kree that
Yeah.
genetically engineered them. So I started checking out the New God stories more, and I saw that there too he drew from like the same mythologies, and it seemed to me that Kirby was trying to tell a story, and nobody would let him tell it. So he
Hmm.
tried telling it at DC. They wouldn't let him tell it the way he wanted to. He tried telling it Marvel. They wouldn't let him do it. Then he went to like some independent companies, and they wouldn't last very long, the companies. So he never
Yeah.
finished this big story he was trying to tell.
Yeah, that was a shame. Jack Kirby, I know he had a story to tell, like as you said. I don't think a lot of people loved his artwork, but I don't think they had the confidence in him to tell the story as a storyteller. But he was so visual that they really should have just let him do, his thing, and not try to pigeonhole him. I mean, we could spend an entire show on the whole issues between Stan Lee and Jack. They were friends, they weren't friends, they were kind of
Frenemies.
friends. That it is a shame that all that came to be. But I wish he was still alive to have at least seen this movie, just to see. He would have been proud to finally have seen his visual and his storyline. Even if it wasn't exactly how he would have told it, I think he would have been proud to have seen it.
The Snyder cut too of Justice League, that featured heavily on the Apocalypse and its denizens like Darkseid and Steppenwolf, and
Yeah.
Granny Goodness was in that briefly. Yeah, the consciousness for his movies is emerging now. So hopefully they'll do more of them in the future.
Well, and with the conclusion of the Eternals, while it is a self-contained story, it certainly hints that the story isn't quite over. That a bigger saga could be emerging, or at least something else that's going to be connected to the Marvel universe is coming. And you mentioned the Inhumans. The Inhumans were originally supposed to be the big screen. Like they may have been
Yes.
the Eternals at one point, and then it got downsized to that ABC TV series, which was a disappointment to a lot of people. I actually, I might have been the only one, but I found myself watching it.
I watched it too.
And I thought Anson Mount, and when I got to actually talk to Anson Mount once, because he showed up at one of our early subspace chatter things. He just came to our open forum, and we were like, "Is this actually Anson Mount?" Because he had his nice cardigan, well, maybe not cardigan sweater, but a nice sweater and his beard and everything. And but he was there, and I think he was feeling out what fans would think of a of what is now Strange New Worlds, and he blatantly lied to our face and said, "Oh no, I don't think that's going to happen." 2 weeks later, well, we understand. But I had asked him. I said, you have such interesting roles, between Hell on Wheels and and in the Inhumans. How much of a challenge was that to play a mute character? Who's basically the star, once again, the center character, but yet
Mhm.
can't speak. That had to be like quite a challenge for an actor. And he agreed. He said it was, he really didn't want to talk too much about the Inhumans, but he, he did say he enjoyed the experience, and it was quite the challenge to be in the show, doing a character who was mute. So, yeah, that I think would have lent itself well had it had a decent budget and been on the
Yeah,
big screen. But what
I
they
just,
did do, I thought was good. I thought, well, outside of Medusa, they basically rendered her useless when Maximus chopped her hair off. I mean, that was,
that is very mythic though. Loki did it to Sif in Norse mythology. He cut her golden locks off, and
yeah. And that's how
that,
they explained in Marvel Comics. That's how they explained how she ended up with raven hair instead.
right.
You know, so
I like the show too. I think that basically, if they had more of a budget, they might have done it better. Like for instance, their fortress was so barren and stark.
yeah,
They couldn't imagine mythical royalty living there.
yeah,
They
yeah,
were all like in a castle dungeon, and they were all like living, these bleak lives. And here they are, supernatural beings with mythic powers, and yet they were living like that. And I like the way Agents of Shield handled the Inhumans.
yeah, yeah.
And I
That's
think eventually the two shows would have connected, much better than they did. But I think they were building up to that before the whole thing fell apart.
yeah, yeah. I think Agents of Shield. I enjoyed that. But that seemed to have gone awry too. That kind of reached a point where I think we were almost relieved that it was time for that to conclude, because it kind of deviated and almost separated from the rest of the universe. Whereas you thought that, with everything happening within Civil War and the events there, and even more so with the first installment of the Avengers, this would have been ideal for Agents of Shield to pick up on aspects. Plus, they did that whole season where they were in space and
Right.
kind of sort of had the Kree there, and yet really didn't utilize that storyline whatsoever. It in no way to me connected to Captain Marvel or anything like that. I think it was a wasted opportunity. Um,
There was political infighting that's come out through several books now, and there's one like super encyclopedia of the MCU that relates all the behind the scenes stuff. There was a lot of fierce competition between the different studios,
hmm,
and the Marvel TV was really not playing nice with the MCU.
hmm,
Uh, so initially, the idea was that they worked together, and they did that in the beginning of Agents of Shield, where
yeah,
things that happened in the movies would wind up being dealt with on the TV show, and so forth. And then that stopped at a certain point. I think Sif, or one of the goddesses, was actually on the show too after Thor.
yes, she was a great addition for a while. I thought that was brilliant to bring her in.
And picked up right after like the first Avengers movie was something that happened in Iron Man 2, I think, with and it gave us Deathlock. And I was enjoying that too. But again, yeah, then they just did their own thing, and now we don't even know if it's part of the MCU multiverse or not. We haven't gotten any word. Sometimes it's yes, sometimes it's no, sometimes we'll see.
And there was the whole idea they were going to do the spinoff with Bobby Morse and her boyfriend. They were going to have their own show, and then
Uh-huh.
abruptly, they completely had to write them out of Shield, and you know we didn't get the spinoff series. We never got to see her become Mockingbird. Well, I
No.
think maybe she was codenamed Mockingbird. I don't even remember now. There's so much of Agents of Shield, which you know Plus, they had big gaps within the season, and I would tend to forget what was happening even.
Yes.
And I think the season where they had the Ghost Rider, I don't think I caught as many episodes of that.
Yeah, I missed a bunch of stuff, and yeah, there were breaks in it, and then it would take a while to get back. Then I'd wait for it to come out on DVD sometimes because I'd missed too much of the season, and then sometimes the DVD sat there for quite a while till I got around to it. So I don't remember very much except for a few shiny episodes. And I again, I wish what happened at Marvel didn't happen, but they're doing it now with their new wave of television. The television and the movies are tied together. You have the same actors going back and forth. You have the stories continuing. So they finally attained what they set out to do. It's just it didn't happen with that first round of
Yeah,
BBC and Hulu shows. As it's
that's the
happened.
one thing I think while Marvel has excelled with their movies, DC has done better in both their animated movies and also with their everything that's gone on the CW. Not that everything on the CW was perfect, but I thought that what DC has brought to the small screen was a pretty good effort,
Yes.
and that they were able to tie that in, you know, unlike anybody had before. They between Arrow and Supergirl and Flash and even Legends, which is now currently all over the place, but just a fun show. Black Lightning and Stargirl, and even the Batwoman has been interesting because, of course, they
Yes.
lost their major their lead, and surprisingly went in a different direction. I would have staked money on the fact that, well, it was only the first season, they'll recast her. They would, and they could have, and ultimately they did recast her, but they kept the lead as a different character entirely,
Yeah.
as Batwoman. It's worked. It's kept my attention. I was surprised that they went in that direction, though. I really thought that they would simply recast Ruby Rose, which they later did with the actress who was in Krypton. And when they actually introduced her and cut her hair and color, I was like, really? She was closely resembled Ruby Rose.
Yes, she did.
And
And it was interesting making the hero into a villain, and it seems that DC's doing that in a lot of their shows. I heard in one of their shows, Batman becomes a villain in one of the CW connected shows. So I haven't seen that yet, but I don't know if it happens on the Titans or in some other show.
yeah, I don't know if the Titans, even though that's a streaming service show, which I've watched. I don't know if that is part of the same CW DC universe, because that's the one thing that DC is keeping their movie universe, their cinematic universe separate from their CW universe, and yet there's also the streaming service shows as well. And I don't know, if that's the same as well, because they had one actor who was playing maybe not Bruce Wayne in Batwoman, but he was the lookalike. So clearly that Bruce Wayne in Batman was different than the older actor who was in Game of Thrones, who played an older Bruce Wayne Batman in the Titans.
Very true, but they mixed them up. Like initially, Supergirl and Flash took place in different universes.
Right.
And then after the Crisis of Infinite Earths, they and Black Lightning all merged together into the same universe.
I always wondered, like, why did they do that in the first place? Like,
I wondered that too. I guess just in case they wanted to leave them separate.
because Flash and Arrow were always in the same universe. So I was very surprised when, well, maybe it was because Supergirl originally was on CBS, even though CBS and CW had a it's hard to understand the issue of rights, what producers want, certain characters that they don't want them to touch. Like in Legends, I don't know if you watch Legends of Tomorrow, but
not the latest season, but I've watched. I love Legends.
When they brought the Atom in, it wasn't supposed to be Ray Palmer. It was supposed to be Ted Kord. It was supposed to be Blue Beetle. And for some reason, they decided that they didn't want Blue Beetle. They wanted Blue Beetle to be held for a different purpose, which was never happened. So all of a sudden Ray Palmer, because the way they had introduced Ray Palmer, he was Ray Palmer of Palmer Industries, and Ray Palmer was never any kind of corporate mogul, or he was always a professor. He was a young Ivy Town academic professor. He was not that at all, but they pigeonholed him in that because they were really writing for Kord and writing for Blue Beetle, the second Blue Beetle, as opposed to the one with the alien armor and everything. So I don't know, maybe they were planning on a Blue Beetle Booster Gold team up, which has always been rumored to be in the works, blue and gold. So
yes, I've heard that too. Let's wait and see if or when that ever takes place. Going back to the Eternals, I liked the movie. It wasn't what I expected it to be, and they changed a lot of elements that I didn't understand why they changed them. I figured I'd have to wait till a sequel movie or till something else where they continued them. I loved it. I can't wait to own it on DVD or Blu-ray. Because it deals with mythical themes and the stars, I'll probably watch it a million times until I have the whole thing memorized. In retrospect, I think it would have worked better as a 6-hour television series, or like a 9-hour television series, because they would have had a lot more time to develop the characters, and they would have had a lot more flashbacks, to make more sense of the world. But it is what it is, and I didn't think it was a bad movie. It's not my favorite Marvel movie, but it's among the top, in terms of the type of things that I like, and I think they did a really great job with it. Marvel has proven that they're trying to branch out into different genres and do different things with their movies, and some things have been more successful than others. So this one didn't resonate with a lot of people, but it took the Marvel universe and it exponentially expanded it by millions of years.
Yeah, that was the thing. I think the storytelling was also, the manner in which the movie told their story was different, in that there was a lot of flashbacks. There was a lot. I mean, you had to almost pay attention to the fact of, well, this happened before, this is happening now. We're getting a flashback here of what did happen. And I had heard rumors that there was things that were going to be explained during the movie that was all over the place. So, and in fact, I thought there were rumors that they were going to throw in something about Atlantis, and hence that we might even see, Namor. But that didn't happen, and it's probably good that they didn't do too much overload. The fact that we got to see Dane Whitman, but we didn't get to hear his story. He has a secret that he didn't tell. And we know, from those of us who follow the comics, that will be very interesting. And also it's interesting as to the voice of, at the very end, because there's a couple different rumors out there as to who that voice was. So.
They announced who it was. Chloe Zhao announced it. It's Blade.
Yes, that's what I had heard too. Yes.
Yeah, she said it in some interview, and Marvel confirmed it.
Yeah.
Blade. So a lot of people are speculating that this is the beginning of Midnight Suns, and that Blaze is going to gather up the same way Nick Fury gathered up the Avengers.
Well, I look forward to that, and I don't know who. See, I don't know if who owns Blade now, because, well, I guess Blade was Fox, so Disney would own that because Disney now owns Fox. Obviously Morbius, which looks fantastic.
Yes.
He looks exactly as I thought he might, and I knew once I heard who was cast to play him would be perfect. Certainly better than when he played the Joker.
Although that
in
was a unique
Suicide.
interpretation, and a lot of people conjectured that that might be the Joker that was a Robin first. I forget
Um,
which Robin was killed, and then became like a Joker-like character, became the Joker. A lot of people were saying that Jared Leto's Joker was that Robin initially, and that that was something that was going to be hinted at. And some people even
uh,
found hints in the movies. So, but again, I was never a big fan of certain Batman runs, so I don't know. I don't have the background knowledge to really comment intelligently on it.
yeah,
Just
I'm not a big fan of the whole idea of Damian Wayne, brat brat Robin, and I didn't think chronologically it made sense that Batman would be that old and stuff. But that's a whole other subject. I like the fact that Jason Todd was. I thought Jason Todd should just stay dead. There's certain characters that they resurrect that I think should have just stayed dead. Um, but I like, we never saw a Tim Drake version of Robin yet. Um, even in the Titans,
mhm.
it's Jason Todd, I believe. So, but it's seeing Shang-Chi was also interesting because that kind of went into another kind of genre in a way, and having Wong as part of it was cool. With the mysticism and also humor. Wong was a great,
Yes.
character to have. I thought that was a great fun movie. Because I don't see Shang-Chi as a superhero. He never really was, technically a superhero, but he was definitely a cool character. Um,
And it seems like they're going to be including him in a lot because at the end of Shang-Chi, Wong finds him.
yeah,
Uh, Again, spoilers, guys. These movies happened already, so there
yeah,
will be
months
spoilers.
ago. So
And it seems that Wong was going to include him. Uh, I think there was even a hint in the Avengers. There seems to be some lines that were said, either taken out of the film or left in the film. I don't remember, that indicated that they had plans for Shang-Chi and that he was going to be one of the Avengers at some point. But Doctor Strange seems to be collecting a bunch of people too. And then there's that woman who's been collecting people from the TV shows and in the Black Widow movie. Mindy, I think her name is, or she
is
talked to
that
Yelena.
is that Val?
Now, maybe, yes. And she's been collecting people from the movies and from TV too.
Yeah,
All
yeah,
these teams forming now. And Shang-Chi will probably be in whatever they do for the Supernatural team because of his
yeah.
powers. But this is something that they didn't talk about a lot. Some people talked about it. In the Eternals, they made 10 rings.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. I didn't know
And,
that.
and in
You
Shang-Chi,
follow the comic more than I did, so
the rings are older than humanity. They were saying in Shang-Chi that these rings were ancient and nobody knows where they came from. And I thought it odd that in the very next movie, when Festus made something that could create a unimind, that it was 10 rings that glowed, in a very
mm.
weird, magical way. So I was wondering if those were related. A few other people caught that and they talked about it. But we had just seen Shang-Chi like a few days before we saw the Eternals. So I was like, wait a second, they were the rings.
Yeah, everything's tying in. So, there's so much going on. And and we've got next year we've got a bunch of good stuff coming out within Marvel. We've got, the aforementioned Morbius. I think the latest Thor movie comes out with Jane Foster being,
Yes,
the lead character. I think we may have another Guardians movie coming out, or
yes,
is that?
and a holiday special too.
Oh yeah, that's right. I don't know. I don't know what's going on with Black Panther right now. I know they were filming it. I think the actress who plays Shuri uh, was injured recently.
That's, that's what I heard, that she was injured, and for a while she was going to be in the movie. Then she was fired. I don't know why they would fire her if she got injured. I
Oh, I didn't
really,
hear that part. No.
Yeah, I was wondering because it wasn't that she couldn't continue; it was that she got fired. Came to reports. So again, you don't know how true many of these things
Yeah,
are.
there's some
What
pretty
it,
wacky rumors out there. Well, there was a lot of rumors that, like, and I can't think of her name at the moment. The actress who plays Captain Marvel. They seem to. There was rumors like almost from the get go that Marvel was getting rid of her, and then it turned out that her voice was, they got someone else to voice her in the animated What If series. But that's not a big deal. She probably just
no,
wasn't available to do the voice work, so they were trying to build that up. Um, I think we're going to see Adam Warlock and that whole
that's
storyline. We're finally going to see the Nova Corps back, and hopefully we're going to see Nova himself. I don't know which Nova we'll see, the Richard Rider or the Alexander version, the younger version. I don't know. If they cast a young person, maybe to would meet up rather well with the Tom Holland Spider-Man, for down the line. So that could be interesting.
Are you
Um,
into collecting figures?
yes, and I do have. I have both versions of Nova. Way back from the Playmates, I have the Richard Rider whose helmet comes off, which is cool. And I have the other version as well. So
Because Disney just um, recently released, I should say, Marvel Legends versions of the What If characters, and
yeah, I
also
like.
Disney released a play set that has all like the different What If, much smaller,
Yeah,
but a bunch of them together, including Watu the Watcher. They have a figure of him in there too.
I like the version of Peggy Carter, Captain
Yes,
Carter.
Captain Carter, not Captain Britain. Which looks like Captain Britain. Captain Carter.
Yeah, and we're supposed to get Captain Britain somewhere along the line
Yes,
in one of these movies too. I forgot which one. Maybe they'll throw him in wherever Black Knight shows up. Maybe we'll have a mini version of the Pendragon comic. And
that'd
and
be
eventually
great.
we're going to see the X-Men. Now
Yes,
that they're going to be part of this universe. So there's so many things that are on the drawing board, and that Disney can play with.
and
Uh,
Daredevil. Matt Murdock made an appearance, and again, spoiler, where everybody suspected he would make an appearance. Matt Murdock was there, and on the Hawkeye show, the fifth and near last episode had a photograph or an image of the Kingpin. If you blinked, you would have missed
uh,
it. But
well,
D'Onofrio,
we're supposed to see him in what I can't wait to see, which is frustrating because I don't yet, have Disney Plus. But he's supposed to also show up in She-Hulk,
yeah,
uh,
She-Hulk in an
who's
Echo.
also an attorney. Jennifer Walter is an attorney. So who knows? Maybe they'll be, um, rivals, or maybe not. Maybe she'll be seeking out advice from him, or he from her, or whatever. I've always loved She-Hulk, so
Me too.
I can't wait to see how that works out and what they do. I hear so many things about that. I hear that it's going to be maybe more lighthearted, maybe a little bit more comedy, because they're trying to base this on the John Byrne, well,
Mhm.
on his run with the sensational She-Hulk, where she was kind of broke the fourth wall. I'm not always fond of that. It worked for Deadpool
For
because
Deadpool.
he's crazy, but Deadpool, you could see that, and he would just be thinking like, "Hi," like he would think he's the star of his own show. I never really thought that would work so much for She-Hulk. Because I started collecting She-Hulk back in the '70s when she was the Savage She-Hulk.
I
Um,
remember those days.
Yeah, and that's funny because she, much like Spider Woman, were created simply to have the rights to them. Stan Lee was afraid that when the Incredible Hulk TV show was going on, that they were going to do a spinoff, and I think it was Universal uh, would have had control of that character. So they quickly decided they would create a She-Hulk. And then, ironically, I think She-Hulk was going to be in one of those reunion movies that, but it didn't happen. They were going to
No.
bring, but yeah. And Spider-Woman, because Filmation was about to have a Spider-Woman character, which ended up being Web Woman, which I think was also paired in one of those Sentinels or Super 7 or whatever they were called, which had the gods.
Yes.
Not that Web Woman was with them, but I think she was part of that segment, different segments. And that's where they created Spider-Woman and put that together so quickly that they realized that they had to redo the whole origin because it made no sense. She was she was like a creation of the high evolutionary, and she was a spider who evolved into a human, and everybody just thought that was stupid. So
Oh, they recently came out with a high evolutionary action figure. I got that as an early holiday present. But that just came out too as part of a Fantastic Four series.
I saw that over at my comic book store, and I
Okay.
almost picked it up, and I regret not picking it up. It was $30. I don't know how much he normally is. I thought, well, wait, maybe you'll see it in an actual store, which won't have such a hefty price tag. It was part of the Marvel
Fantastic
Legends.
Four. Yeah,
Okay.
Marvel Legends with the Fantastic Four edition. I picked them up for, I think on Amazon, I picked them for like $22 on Amazon.
Okay. Yeah, that's
And I
reasonable.
Prime, so it was just the amount it cost plus a couple of bucks tax.
Yeah,
So
I would have done that. I just thought 30 was a bit much, but
and Hercules, they recently came out with a retro Hercules figure. So that I pre-ordered months ahead of time because the price was going wild. Originally it was like $30. I said, I'll pick it up for $30 because I don't collect very many figures. But Hercules I have to buy. And then like a couple of weeks later, I looked and the pre-orders were going for like $50, $60. I was like, oh no. Then one of the Big Bad Toy Store, one of those type of things started listing it for like the price that it was originally going for, but a little lower for 20 something dollars. So I think I ordered it through one of them, or Amazon went down to the original 20 something dollar amount. So it was from one of those two places that I got it, but it was a wild ride until I managed to secure one at a price I was willing to pay.
yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I still want that figure, and I should think to look online for it. Like I should get with the program of the 21st century, and I do look at different figures. Like they have it's called Pulp Heroes. They're custom characters,
Uh-huh.
so they only make so many, so they're an outrageous amount of money. But the Shadow, Doc Savage, who has multiple heads, like the 70s cover, with the close cropped head, and then they have him the way he appeared on the pulps. The Shadow looks fantastic, and they have a Dick Tracy.
Awesome.
I could take or leave Dick Tracy, but the Shadow and Doc Savage, but they're $65 each.
That's the unfortunate thing. And the Shadow's been envisioned, and a very popular author who is very popular wrote
Yes.
the new Shadow. I used to be a big fan of the Shadow years ago. I used to have all the shows recorded either on tape or CD. I had all the movies, but I think we lost them in a move. I had the audio shows on tape recorders, but they went the way of many things in life, and they're someplace.
I started to play. I had the audio version of that novel, and I started to play it. And the first 5, or maybe I'll give it even 15 minutes, was really good because it had a scene from like the 1930s or 40s at the latest, and then it jumped to the future, and I mean far future, beyond 2021. With more, so it was sort of weird. It was sort of sci-fi, and she's got a link to the Shadow, and I guess he's got, and I was just like, no, this is not the Shadow that I want, and I didn't even finish listening to it. It's rare. And I packed it up and returned it to the library, and was happy that I didn't buy it. Same thing with last night. I was watching the movie The Green Knight. I don't know if you.
Uh, I haven't seen it yet, but it's on my to watch list.
It was in and out of the theater, and it wasn't around long, and in my opinion, I now see why.
Okay.
You could see it yourself. Maybe you would appreciate it. It's rare that I would also pack up a movie. I didn't see the whole thing, and it was moving very slow, and I just was like, nope. And I regret it. I had two movies, The New Mutants, which also came out this year, early
Yes.
this year, and I somehow missed The New Mutants, which is very rare, because I actually collected the New Mutants comics, and yet at the same time wasn't as familiar with the X-Men, because the X-Men was so popular, and I felt like I was going to come into the party, towards late, because it had such a history.
Right.
But the New Mutants I started to collect, and I collected them almost all the way through. So I was excited about them doing the New Mutants, and I think again they cast it really well. They dip into the pool of the Game of Thrones cast, and then
Yes.
who they have at Wolfsbane, and yeah, somehow I missed it, and that's the movie I should have watched last night because I heard it was very good.
Yeah,
But
my wife and I enjoyed it. It was very different. It was like a horror movie more than a superhero movie, like a horror sci-fi blend.
oh,
Uh,
really? Okay.
I liked it. It would have been good if they made more of them, but that's not going to happen now. We're reaching almost the end of our conversation. I think we have like 5 more minutes or so. And I wanted to ask you before we wrap up today, would you like your show to be a Zoom show, or would you like to continue on audio, or do you want to we'll do as catch can and see what we want to do for
If we could keep it a little hybrid at times, but I'm always up for the Zoom. I don't mind that. I know some of my guests, most of my guests, I think would like Zoom.
Okay.
Wayne's a little shy of the whole Zoom thing, but that's okay. He'll do it for me. So yeah, we'll and Laura's certainly up for it, and she's eager to talk about more of the MCU for January or February, whenever. I know she's available all of January, so maybe we'll bring her in, and we'll talk different aspects, because we'll focus more on the streaming services shows that she's seen. So yeah,
That's awesome. And if we do them on Zoom, I'll just announce the show, and then when there's only like 5 minutes left, I'll pop up again just to say, we have like
yeah, that's right. Because I always lose complete lack of time, even when I have the phone in front of me with the time, and we just get so wrapped up in what we're saying. And thank God that you come in and say, hey, reminder.
It's happened many times. So all of a sudden I look and we have like 30 seconds or 10 seconds. So I try to keep on top of that now. And okay, that's great. And then sometimes it's because of a scheduling conflict, we'll have to switch back to audio, but we'll make it a Zoom show.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have the monthly Star Trek show, and that's going to continue. The next one is, I believe, the 24th. Where we have.
I'm glad you reminded me of that. 24th, and that's Friday.
Friday, I believe.
Okay.
I'll look it up and I'll confirm it. And then I, as I explained before we started the show, I'm having a community wellness show that's going to be a hybrid of Zoom, pre-recorded stuff, and also audio. So that one's going to jump around because, as you pointed out, some people are not familiar with or comfortable on Zoom. Some people don't want to appear visually at all. So I'm leaving that one kind of fluid.
Mm-hmm.
And I really want to follow Region 7's initiative with the step walking, because you're a bunch of folks who are united by common purpose and interests, and you've decided to focus some of your energy on your health, individually as people and as an organization. So that's something that is worth emulating, and it's not that difficult to do, and you're doing it. So it'll be like an example to other people. Maybe their sewing club, maybe their stamp collecting club, whatever club they have, get together and walk once a week or do something.
Yeah, even we're surprised at that because usually our activity, after a meeting is like, where are we going to eat? So instead we're doing something that's productive and doing some exercise. I mean, it's on an individual basis, but we count our steps and then present like a report at the end of the month, or everyone presents their report to their chapter leader, and then our chapter leader presents it to the what's called the assistant surgeon general's office of Starfleet Medical, which is on the regional level. And then on the regional level, they submit a report to the fleet level Starfleet Medical, and then it's all tabulated, and it gets to be seen like how much effort is done throughout the entire organization, which is fantastic.
So we'll follow that on that show. So occasionally we'll have like updates, or we'll focus on it during the segment. And you guys, again, you're an example to other people on very many levels. Here's another level, where the Star Trek ideal can be anchored into our here and now to help inspire us toward a better future for all.
Absolutely.
Bob, thank you so very much. I always enjoy our conversations. If I didn't have another show to pull together in half an hour, I'd say, well, after we finish recording, we'll continue the conversation, but to be continued. I'll contact you before the weekend, and we'll plan the health show and the transition into 2022. We're going to touch base on the 24th, but in case we don't, very happy holiday to you and your family.
To you as well. You and
be
Athena
well.
and your family.
Thank you. And thanks to everybody who joined us. By the time you see this, it'll be early next week, but I hope you had a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you here soon. Take care, everybody. And again, thank you. Bye, Bob.
Take care. Thank you.